All right, lesson 2 of design. We are going to dive into wireframing. So the term wireframing is essentially to put in the bones or the skeleton of your app. Now, in the previous lesson, we went over the basics of Figma. Now we're going to get into actual app design. So there are 3 primary steps here that I employ. The first one is to define the core actions and user journey. You should have done some of this already in the process of ideation, but it's worth doing again as you begin wireframing. Next, a core element of wireframing is to start with low fidelity. Wireframes are low fidelity. Low fidelity means that you're not worried about colors or corner radiuses and whatnot. Even though I showed you that in the previous lesson, unimportant. What we're really focused on is what goes where, right? User experience. What elements go in what spots and what they lead to, and the sort of actions and transformations that are performed by the software on the user input, data, whatever it may be. The third is KISS. I love this term. I try to remind myself of it every single day, which is keep it simple, stupid. This is an acronym that applies to so much in life. We were filming a podcast today, and I made the remark that it's interesting to see how many indie hackers and software developers employ very complex app store optimization and sort of, not hacky, but complex design techniques and engineering, and yet they're at $400 in MRR, or monthly recurring revenue. Meanwhile, when I launched RizGPT, we hit over $80,000 a year, or $80,000 a month within just 3 days, because we kept it super simple, and we focused on the things that mattered, which at the time was distribution and going viral and getting money in the door so that we could use that cash to deploy for future growth. So the same way that it applies to how you operate your business, it really applies to the start of design and wireframing. Complexity will only increase as you go throughout the process of designing your app. You're going to continue to add and add and add screens. It's a lot easier to start simple and slowly expand than to start complex and then make it simple. I see people all the time. They start with this incredibly complicated app. I'm like, dude, I don't even fucking know how to use this, right? It should be like a 3-year-old should be able to use your product. Or, maybe more realistically, I think a term I've used is your product should be able to be used by a 7 and a 70-year-old. So for many reasons, keep it simple. One reason that it's really important to begin wireframing as quickly as possible is, in my opinion, it is required if you want people to actually believe in your vision. I have people hit me up all the time. They say, hey, man, can you review my idea? Like, I want to build this app, blah, blah, blah. I go, yeah, send me the Figma file. And it's silence, right? They don't have it. And I'm like, man, wireframing should take you no more than a couple of minutes if you're really just trying to move as quickly as possible. And it will make the vision much more clear for anyone that sees it, right? So more data means more informed decision making, both for yourself and others. All right, enough of the background. Let's get into it. All right, so context real quick. I'm coming into this with pretty much no preconceived notions. I want this to be raw and authentic rather than planned out. And so I'm going to try to walk you guys through my thought process. What this means is I'm not going to design an entire application within these lessons, but I'm going to share with you guys how I think about the design. Okay, so honestly, here I want to start with text. I almost always do this. I'm going to increase the size of this so it's a little bit more visible. Let's go even more, honestly. Okay. So later on, we're going to define in the, I think 2 lessons from now, we're going to go deeper into core or primary and secondary actions. But for now, as we begin wireframing, I'm just going to kind of jot down a couple of actions. So this might be a little bit too big. go. Yeah, I like this. Actions. All right, so if we're trying to help people increase their testosterone, right? This is the problem that we're solving. We should first think about what do we need from the individual, right? Um, one of the major advantages of applications as a whole is that they're interactive, right? It's not just text or an article where you come into this product and then it's just everything's prepackaged, right? We can add interactions. And so for here, I think that the first thing is getting data from the individual. So if we want to improve testosterone, I think I'm gonna jot down some things that are valuable. I'm gonna make this even smaller. So I'm gonna be typing a good amount. Selfie of face, picture of body, demographic, and then so demographic meaning age, gender. I think that this will be pretty much all men. So we're just gonna assume that they're male. If they're female that wants to optimize their testosterone for whatever reason, that maybe the app won't be great for them. So we can kind of just chop this down to age, maybe race. I don't know the degree to which testosterone is correlated with race, but could be important. And then let's see, like lifestyle, right? So how often do you exercise? What sort of food do you eat? Okay. I think that this is kind of like the core information that we want to get from the individual. So, these aren't actions themselves. So the action here would be receive an analysis or input your data. Okay, so now anytime that we have an action that the user takes, we should think about what is the result, right? Here we're getting the inputs from the user. So what is the output going to be? We can do UMax style. So UMax, you get face ratings and recommendations. So we'll do what are some things that people are interested in, right? They're probably interested in so now we'll do output of the data. So this will be the analysis. People are interested in estimated testosterone. I think that is the most obvious one to start. Maybe biological age, depending on the questions that we ask, that could be pretty interesting. So these are the more predictive components. Maybe like a masculinity score, but that's just kind of estimated testosterone. Percentile, we should add that in the estimated testosterone. Percentile relative to age. Okay, I think that yeah, so this is like the sort of like rating, right? These are like the predictions that we're making, the scores that we're giving to the individual, and next we have recommendations. So one component here to think about is like, how do we make the recommendations personalized rather than just like, how often do you exercise? 1 time per week. And then the recommendation is just exercise more, like that's kind of obvious. So I think that this is where the selfie and body come into play. Ooh, so we should do physique rating. We could even do facial rating. So beyond just the estimated testosterone, right? This is all encompassing. These would be more specific. All right, so we're gonna take all this and we're actually gonna all nest this under, this will be the analysis, we'll say. So that within the output, we have the analysis and we have the recommendations. Okay, recommendations. Based on body slash. So actually, we don't have to explain the methodology of how we produce it, but exercise frequency, sleep improvement. You know, we can make this beyond just test max. Like maybe we make this like a holistic version of UMax, right? This is what UMax was always kind of intended to be. All right. Diet, obviously, sleep, but yeah. Oh wait, I already wrote sleep. Okay. Cool. Something that you might notice is that like while I'm explaining and going through this process, I'm significantly less structured or clear thinking as I usually am, or at least strive to be. Part of that reason is because this is inherently it's a very creative endeavor, and there's going to be a lot of iteration in trying to figure out what the correct inputs and outputs look like, as well as sort of functionality. Okay, and so once you get this output, I think the important component here is something along the lines of habit tracking and accountability. So accountability plus tracking. So this is why it's very important to get screenshots of comparable apps. Once again, like I would have way more. I'd have like 100 plus screenshots if I were actually going through the full process of building an app myself. But I really like what Quitter has here, and I think Opal has something similar too, which is like the core functionality, like the first fucking thing that you see when you open the app is your streak, and I think that that's pretty important here and valuable. Okay. So in the previous lesson, we did some basic sort of mocking of redesigning UMax. We're gonna do a somewhat similar design here, but it's going to be different, right? We're not just redesigning UMax. So I think I kind of want to merge UMax and Quitter. All right. I'm not certain what I want the core UI display to be right here. I don't know if it's the streak or your current estimated testosterone, or maybe both. Maybe it could be actions remaining for the day. So maybe we go more habit tracker style. It could be interesting to have percent completion, and we show that through the previous days, and we can fill it up. I want to do this right, and yet at the same time, I want to move relatively quickly. Okay, let's do this. So at the top, we're going to do the streak. We'll just do pretty basic. Here I'm going to create a component or a frame so that I can auto layout and then just bang, 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 bang. That should be 7. We'll maybe increase the size of this a little bit. And I'll add a note here, and this is weak layout. So I'll add these comments if I'm working with someone, either a designer or a co-founder. It's very important to have comments here as you're going through the process of wireframing, so they know what you're actually building out. Now I think maybe some text along the lines of like, maybe we say like maybe we give like a percent score. This could be interesting. Oh wait, let me bring this in a little bit. All right, let's do a little percent score. I know like more common is streak, right? And I think that streak is good, but I want something that's like, you know, maybe it's, I want like a number, you know? I want something that where you're like, I need to ensure that I'm hitting this every single day. So, right, so for quitter, they have the amount of time that you've been free from porn. For Cal AI, we have your daily calories. For UMax, I actually think that this was a major shortcoming, which was that we did not have a sort of core action to return to. We had this daily tab here, which was kind of a routine, but the fact that that wasn't on the first page was a major issue. Okay, we'll leave this for now. This will, I'll just add a note. I'll be like, want something catchy here. Okay. And then your actual actions will be your routine, right? So we'll have here, so I'll add, whoa, what did I do here? Action 1. Action 2, and so forth. Man. Cool. Don't worry about the like little Figma stuff that I'm doing with the components and whatnot. If you don't know how to do it, no worries. You'll learn with time. I'm not all that good with Figma, right? But I'm okay. All right, so we'll have the core sort of habits here. Maybe I should have named these habits. Who cares? And then I kind of like what Quitter does here with like the panic button at the bottom. We want the analysis to be obvious enough. So this will probably be when the individual has already sort of performed their first analysis, because that will set their habits. But if they have not completed their habits, we'll say we'll maybe do the UMax style. Complete your first analysis. All right, and we'll change this. This will just be like button. Cool. One more thing. Oops. I should just ungroup this. Okay. So when you have not performed your first analysis, it'll ask you to start. Once you have performed it, the core action will be the number of habits that you have. We'll just rename this to actions. The number of actions that you have remaining for the day. We can go ahead and frame this. I'll make it nice and pretty. And then I'm just going to center that real quick. Sorry, I'm being a little bit of a perfectionist here. which is somewhat ironic because wireframing is obviously imperfect. Great. Now what I have here is I have like the basic skeleton for the core functionality of the app. We have the home page where if you haven't scanned, it prompts you to start. We would then have some sort of upload flow, right? So that would come in between these two. So move this on over. Insert upload flow. And then we have this. And to be honest, like this is all that you really need to know when it comes to wireframing. There's a good amount of theory, and we'll touch on that a little bit more in the next unit of this module for design. But I think that this covers the high level. Take screenshots of other apps, clearly define what your actions are within the product, and keep it as simple as possible to start, and then whip up your first couple of screens. In the next lesson, we're going to go over hiring a designer. So honestly, screens like this are more than enough to begin working with a designer. I've worked with designers with much less than this before, to be honest, with like as little as this, honestly. Now, the reason that I try to hire a designer pretty quickly in the project is if you want to move as fast as possible and you're not constrained by capital. I'm sure some people here are. That's fine. We did not hire one for Plug AI, actually ever. Then, as soon as you figure out what the kind of like even just one screen of the app is going to look like, you explain the project to a bunch of designers. You can start testing, figuring out who's best. Once again, we're going to go over this in the next lesson, but yep, this is essentially my process for wireframing. See you guys later.